I think that it all filters into this appointment, and I think that Tottenham are going to end their drought for a trophy. I really do. I think Antonio Conte is one of the best managers in the league, and I'm heartbroken he's gone to Tottenham.
Hello and welcome back to The Big Stage, brought to you by Betting Expert. My name's Joe Ryan. I'll be your host for this week's show, where we're going to go in depth on game week 11 of the Premier League, bring you some of our best bets and also the news and views from some top experts in the game. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guests. As always, I'm joined by broadcaster Rory, Jennings, injury expert Ben Dinnery, and also betting expert's own Dan Jenkins. Chaps, the managerial merry-go-round has started already. See some names being fired. Nuno's obviously been sacked at Spurs. But Rory, I want to bring you in here. Conte, the right man for Tottenham. What do you think?
I think he's the right man from their perspective. I mean, the man has broken my heart. It's hit me so hard, this one, Joe. Genuinely, I feel like I'm having some sort of existential crisis over this, because it's changed the way that I view football. I've genuinely thought that Conte was a man of principle, and all we ask from a Chelsea perspective is one thing: don't go to Tottenham. Like, you can pretty much do anything. You know, Joe Cole went to Liverpool, proved you could still be loved. Petr Cech went to Arsenal, proved you could still be loved. Juan Mata, Manchester United. Just don't go to Tottenham. And he's done that, and I really didn't think he had it in him. So I'm personally gutted, but I think part of the reason that I'm so gutted as well as having my heart broken by Conte is because I think finally Tottenham have got it right. I think the years of shoddy appointments, from George Graham to Jacques Santini to Martin Jol to my personal favourite, Tim Sherwood, I think that it all filters into this appointment, and I think that Tottenham are going to end their drought for a trophy. I really do. I think Antonio Conte is one of the best managers in the league, and I'm heartbroken he's gone to Tottenham.
And Ben, just to bring you in as well as a Newcastle fan, obviously Steve Bruce has gone already. But what's your take on the managerial merry-go-round that's going on in the Premier League? Is it too early to be sacking managers at this stage?
We're only 10 games in. There's still a lot of football to be played. I would prefer to see managers given more of an opportunity to maybe turn things around. But, it's a results-driven business, and stakeholders within the clubs just won't afford managers that pleasure anymore, and I think performances on the pitch and things not quite right off the pitch, ultimately, that led to Nuno's downfall. Steve Bruce was, he had his back against the wall from day one, so that wasn't a surprise. And look, if you don't see one or two managerial casualties, before the Christmas break, that will probably be a surprise as well.
Absolutely. Now, just to bring in Dan here, this week is Safer Gambling Week across the industry, so we do want to promote, as always, responsible gambling here on Betting Expert. But Dan, can you give us some pointers, maybe just how to approach gambling in a responsible way?
I think the best piece of advice is to not think of gambling as a way to make money. Professional gamblers are a minority for a reason, and most people shouldn't view it that way. Never chase your losses or gamble when you're feeling upset or just feeling bad in any way. The best piece of advice is to set a money limit and only gamble with money that you can afford to lose. That's why it's illegal to deposit into betting sites using credit cards in the UK.
Great stuff. And for more advice, head on over to bettingexpert.com. There's plenty more articles and tips and tricks on how to gamble responsibly. But now we're going to move on to the first big feature game of the weekend. It is the Manchester Derby, United against City. So the Manchester Derby takes place on Saturday, and here are the odds on how the bookmakers are seeing this one going. We are looking at favourites being Manchester City in this one, United outsiders, but there is something to note with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and his record against Pep Guardiola. He's actually doing really well historically against Pep. So Rory, I want to bring you in here. I mean, what is it about Ole that kind of gets a result against Pep, do you think?
I genuinely don't know. I think that on some level we have to explore it. Are Manchester United good because they're lucky, or are they lucky because they're good? Like the amount of times that he gets himself out of jail, it does you wonder if there's some sort of science behind it. Whatever you say about him, whatever frailty he may demonstrate as a manager, the fellow can pull it out of the bag when it most matters. And his record against Guardiola is hugely favourable, despite a fairly shoddy performance midweek. They got the point that they needed. They beat Tottenham last week, all off the back of that drubbing against Liverpool. As soon as that full-time whistle blew at Old Trafford after the Liverpool game, they said 3 games to save his job. I think most people deduced that 5 points was essential, prerequisite, 5 points. And he's on course for that. So I don't know. I genuinely wish that I could shed more insight here. But the truth is, I have no idea. I have no idea why they are so shaky at times. Cristiano Ronaldo digs them out of a hole, but you could almost argue that he digs them out of a hole that his position in the team perhaps finds himself in. Like Ronaldo gets them out of the problems that Ronaldo creates, maybe. But I have no idea what Manchester United team will turn up. I wouldn't be surprised if Manchester United win, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were 3-0 down at half time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just looking at the historical data as well, I mean, the away side has won 8 of the last 11 Manchester derbies. So United are getting results away at the Etihad as well. So yeah, it is a pretty strange one. But Ben, just from your point of view, in terms of the kind of injury updates going into the Manchester derby, what key kind of players or absences are there going into this one?
I think massively for Manchester United will be the absence of Rafael Varane. He picked up a hamstring problem, and we know now that's likely to keep him out for in and around a month. Of course, his return from a recent adductor problem, that prompted a change in tactics and formation following that defeat to Liverpool. That's seen Ole go with 3 centre-backs. Now, obviously, with Varane out, that means Eric Bailly came in the Champions League, and there are also question marks with regards to Victor Lindelof. Hopefully that problem doesn't look too serious. Picked up a knock in training on Monday, but he has been selected in the upcoming Sweden squad for their World Cup qualifiers, so he should be in and around the squad. But whether Ole is confident enough to go with a back 3 of Maguire, Bailly and Lindelof remains to be seen.
Now, one thing I do want to point out as well is the Crystal Palace defeat Manchester City had last week. Like, where did that come from, Ben, in your view? I mean, how does City bounce back from something like that?
Yeah, I mean, the sending off of Aymeric Laporte was obviously big. Wilfried Zaha knew exactly what he was doing, showed him a clean pair of heels and pulled him back. And it was one of those perfect storms. I really like Palace this season. We've seen a team that's transitioning, from the old guard and Roy Hodgson to Patrick Vieira, who wants to implement these new footballing philosophies. Palace to play on the front foot, this high pressing game, and make Wilfried Zaha a focal point of that team. But in and around that, you have the arrival of Conor Gallagher, who's been superb. Even James McArthur is having, his best season in a Palace shirt. And then you've got some attacking young prospects who've come into the club, and Michael Olise, you've got Edouard, even Benteke has raised these games. And I just think, look, it's one of those games that can happen in the Premier League. Can happen to any team. We've seen it with Liverpool in the past, with Brighton even, 2-0 up, should have maybe went to 3-0 down, and Brighton fight back. So I firmly expect City to bounce back this weekend.
But Rory, let's just talk a little bit about United as well. I mean, Ole changed the shape a little bit more against Spurs and Atalanta, especially as well. How much do you think that's going to play into the game on Saturday against City?
I think it's very tricky. Going to 3 at the back the way that he did, I think it was fairly clever, but it was probably too late, wasn't it? That should have probably happened previously in the game against Liverpool. So I don't think they have personnel to do it now. I honestly think that Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, if he had enough about him, should drop Harry Maguire. It's not going to happen because it's the derby, because they're going into the derby. He's the club captain. But Harry Maguire's performances have been costing his team results. And there needs to be some consequence for these ridiculous performances. He is actually a huge problem for Manchester United. So I don't think it's necessarily about the shape. I think it's about the personnel. I appreciate that there are there are issues with the personnel, but Ronaldo will get the headlines and did get the headlines from midweek because of the beautiful, the last minute equaliser and the beautiful goal scored but before that. But I think ultimately the man of the match that day was Eric Bailly. I can't see a world where Harry Maguire preserves his place in the team at the expense of Eric Bailly going into the Manchester derby when he has constantly proved to us already, Harry Maguire, that he's not good enough at the moment. There needs to be consequence to these terrible performances. So I think we can talk about the shape all we like, but ultimately the players playing in these positions, if they're going to let Solskjaer down, it's almost irrelevant what the tactical acumen is coming on from the sidelines if Harry Maguire is going to be churning out these ridiculous performances.
And Ben, do you share that view of the need to get Harry Maguire out? Maybe it is a change of personnel from the starting 11. What do you think?
I think, defensively, they need to improve drastically. Over the last 6, I think only Aston Villa and Norwich have got a worse XG conceded, and actually they've underperformed that metric as well, only 1 clean sheet. And yeah, maybe Harry Maguire's got a little bit of a hangover from the Euros. We know that he was rushed back from that recent calf problem and lambasted for his performance in that game, and he just hasn't looked quite on it. Don't know the reasons why. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Luke Shaw either, or Aaron Wan-Bissaka on the other side. So it's, individual performances, yes, but I think collectively as a team, Manchester United aren't defending as well as they should.
And one player I did want to talk to you as well, Ben, is Kevin De Bruyne. He's kind of been off the boil a little bit. Do you put that down to maybe the injury that he sustained, and of course in the Euros as well, and just not coming back to that peak performance that we know that he is capable of?
Yeah, he is suffering a little bit of a hangover from the Euro tournament. Of course, he picked up that ankle ligament problem, and by his own admission, he was probably rushed back a little bit too soon at the start of the season. That prompted another short spell on the sidelines, and now we're just seeing Kevin De Bruyne approaching somewhere near full fitness, but there's still a long way to go. I think we've seen a shift from Pep and certainly City in recent times, where Kevin De Bruyne was always the focal point of that team. He was probably one of the only players that was always nailed down in that start 11, and maybe along with Ruben Diaz and Edison. Now, the arrival of Jack Grealish and the likes of Bernardo Silva stepping up, we're seeing some big performances from Phil Foden. So maybe the emphasis isn't all about Kevin De Bruyne anymore, and City can afford to manage him a little bit better.
Well, I know I've been stung with my fantasy team. I had him as captain the last 2 weeks, and that's going to stop right now. But Dan, I want to bring you in here as our betting expert tipster to give us the best bet for this one. So which way do you see it going, and just explain your best bet for the game?
Yeah, I mean, in spite of all of that, I think the value is with Manchester United here. I'm backing them with plus half a goal in the Asian handicap market. That's at 2.28 odds, implied probability of 44%, which I think has plenty of value. Ben talked about Varane being out, but they're also missing Paul Pogba, who's suspended, and I think that'll actually kind of work in their favour. They've beaten City 4 times under Solskjaer, and Paul Pogba wasn't in the squad for any of them. And when he has played, they've lost 2 and drawn 1. So maybe that more defensive-minded midfield could be the key for them. But I like United in the draw no bet market. That's at 4.20, but I think plus half a goal in the Asian handicap is the best bet.
And Rory, your initial reaction to that tip from Dan, what do you make of it?
I think I'm in tune with Dan there. I think I am in tune. I see Manchester United winning. I don't know why. It's partly because of what Solskjaer has done when he's needed to do it. It's partly because of what Solskjaer has done to Pep over a fair few meetings that they've had. And I just think that they can do it. And I think that also Man City have looked shoddy. Obviously, we heard there about the De Bruyne issue, and it feels to me, Man City, weirdly, it's not a million miles away from what Aston Villa were doing last year. It's get the ball to Grealish and hope for the best. And I just think that there is a vulnerability there, and Manchester United could exploit it in an early kickoff.
And for you, Ben, do you see there being some value in backing United to get a result against City?
The big concern for me is defensively for United, and I can't see them stopping City score. I think they'll get at least 2, possibly 3 goals. So I'm going against the grain on this one, I'm afraid.
Yeah, same here, actually. I'm going for City to win. I'm just going by 1 goal, though, so Potentially it's going to be a pretty close one, but I am going to go for a City win. But now let's move on to go through some of the other games of the game week in our quickfire predictions. So the first game of the game week does see Southampton take on Aston Villa on Friday night. Now, for me, Villa are in really dire form at the minute. Southampton are the bookies' favourites, as you can tell by the graphic. Not expecting, actually, the bookies are expecting a high-scoring game in this one. But interestingly, Danny Ings won't be available off the back of some COVID-related illness. But Dan, let's just talk to you about our top bet for this one. We just pull it up on screen for us now. And then, Dan, you take us through why you're going for that selection.
Yeah, so I'm going for Aston Villa plus 0.25 in the Asian handicap market. That's at 2.10. They've lost their last 4, but I think they were pretty unfortunate in a few of them. They should have had a few more points than they did. I think that win is coming, and they're going to start picking up some points in the next 5 matches starting here. They look good in the 1x2 market as well. Southampton are pretty big favourites, but I think there is value with the visitors.
Now, Rory, do you agree with that line of thinking? Of course, if you do place this bet and it is a draw, you'll get half your stake back. So do you think Villa can get a result?
I don't. Villa have lost 4 in a row, haven't they? And I think people have... I don't agree with this sentiment at all, but people have actually started questioning whether Dean Smith is the right man to be leading them. And it's funny, isn't it? Coming off the back of the summer when people were saying, you know, if you subtract Grealish, but you add Bailey, Buendia, Ings... are you net better than if you had Grealish? And people would think the general consensus was, yes, you're a better team to bring in those 3 and lose Grealish. And it just shows you that it's not as simple as that. It just shows you the impact of Jack Grealish. And I feel like Villa are now plummeting like a stone. And potentially, you know, it does feel like one bigger club, like not the obvious, could be dragged into a relegation battle. And it's potentially, as the Villa, you know, Newcastle, Villa, Leeds are all capable of going down. And I think that if they lose this, Villa, which I think they will, I think they really do need to then be very careful, because a relegation dogfight could be in the very near future for them.
Well, you mentioned there Dean Smith as well. He's actually now the bookies' favourite to be the next manager to be sacked as well. So obviously things aren't going too well there. But Ben, as well, do you see any hope for Villa in this one?
Any hope? I mean, they do have some quality on the pitch. You know, Ollie Watkins, I think Leon Bailey looks a great prospect. We've seen Buendia, nice assist last weekend. But for me, it's Southampton all the way. So again, I'm sorry, I'm going against the experts here. But I just think Ralph Hasenhüttl has got his team playing well at the moment. Again, decent result at Watford. We've seen Shea Adams with a great goal of the month nominee. We see Armando Broja back, challenging for that place up front. And also I think the return of James Ward-Prowse following his 3-match ban and his England call-up, that'll give him confidence. And I do like Southampton. I think it'll be a close game, but I expect the Saints just to nick it.
And just a point as well, Rory brought it up about the kind of Moneyball approach of Villa. Those 3 signings that they tried to replace Jack Grealish with, they still haven't started a game together yet in the Premier League. So maybe that's why they're not performing, because they just simply haven't been on the pitch at the same time. Now, I'm, as a Villa fan, unfortunately, I'm going to follow the form here, and I don't think we're going to get a result. I'm going to go for Southampton to win. But Rory, let's just have your quickfire prediction for the match.
I'm going for Southampton to win the game 2-1.
And Ben, for you?
I'm saying 2-0.
And I myself going for a 1-0 Southampton win. But let's move on to the next game. We're going to look at Crystal Palace against Wolves. Now here, obviously, the bookies are favouring Palace here. Maybe that momentum they picked up after that win against City will take them into this one with a lot of confidence. But I just want to get Dan's thoughts. What's the value pick going into Palace against Wolves?
Yeah, this is it's a tough match to call, but I've gone with Wolves. They're the form side coming into this one. They got 4 wins in their last 5. They haven't lost an away match since the opening day, but my bet is plus a quarter of a goals in the Asian handicap market. That way you'll get a little something back in the very likely event that this match is a draw. And
Rory, what's your kind of inclination towards that bet? You think Wolves do show signs of being a good value bet here?
I agree with the last sentence, the last few words there. I couldn't separate them. I think this has got a draw written all over it.
And for you, Ben, what do you think?
I'm going Palace. I'm all over Palace this season. Loving them. Look, Wolves have been okay. I've been slightly disappointed. They started off very slow. I expected more from Bruno Lage. Implementing his own, again, attacking philosophies on the team. They seem a team of creators. Raul Jimenez had a great start. He seems to be coming back into form now. He-Chan as well. And that third spot is still up for grabs with Trincao and Traore. But look, I like Palace. I think with Zaha and with Gallagher, then I think they'll edge it.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to side with Dan on this one. I do think that Wolves will be too strong and will get the result. So just to reiterate, Rory, you're going for a draw here. Myself, I'm going for an away win. Ben, what are you looking at for this one?
I am looking at Palace 2-0.
Great stuff. All right, then let's move on to the next game. We got Chelsea against Burnley. Of course, Chelsea flying at the top of the league right now, looking like heavy favourites to win this one. Could be a bit of a goal fest as well. So I want to open up with Dan again, your best bet for this one. Chelsea on the Asian handicap looks like a good bet.
Yeah, they've got a really good record against Burnley. Won their last 4, scored 12 in the process. They've had at least 3 goals in 4 of their Premier League matches at home this season. So yeah, I think Chelsea minus 1.75 goals. That's a 2.07 with Bet365. That's the best bet.
And Rory, as a resident Chelsea fan, let's see your opinion on that bet. Do you think Chelsea are going to win this one comfortably?
Yeah, I've gone for 3-0 Chelsea. I think that we will be far too strong for them. The only reason I haven't gone bigger than 3 is because we played in Europe this week, and I feel like that takes a little bit away from us. But I think that we'll be good, and we have an opportunity this weekend. Chelsea have the easiest fixture. Liverpool have a very difficult fixture. Manchester United, Manchester City are playing each other. This is the weekend, I think, for Chelsea to carpe the diem. We need to win this weekend. We need to pull away, and whatever happens in the other games will only benefit us. I think the team and the manager in particular will be looking at this weekend as a pivotal one.
And Ben, do you see this one as being a bit of a walkover for Chelsea?
I'm not saying walkover. I do expect to win. I'm saying it might be a little bit tighter. Burnley went to Anfield and yet he had lost 2-0 on both of those occasions. I expect Chelsea to come away with a 2-0 victory as well. Although I can't totally discount a Burnley goal given the form of Maxwell Cornet since he's come into that Claret team.
And I'm siding with Dan as well. I feel like Chelsea should win this one pretty comfortably and by a big margin as well. Now let's move on to the next game on the list. We're going to be looking at Brentford against Norwich. Now Brentford do go into this one as the bookies' favourites, of course, due to the diabolical form that Norwich are showing. There just doesn't seem to be much value in backing Norwich to do anything this season. But Dan, you have a different take. What's your bet for this game?
Yeah, I quite like Norwich here. I'm backing them with plus half a goal in the Asian handicap market. That's 2.45 with Unibet. Brentford have lost their last 3 matches, and they'll also be without goalkeeper David Raya, who's picked up a lengthy injury, which I'm sure Ben can talk about as well. Raya's actually in the top 3 goalkeepers in Europe's top 5 leagues for average touches per match and defensive actions outside the penalty area. It's hard to lose someone so important in the team and not have it affect results. His understudy Alvaro Fernandez came in last week and had a pretty rough match against Burnley. So I think that gives Norwich a pretty good opportunity to get a result, maybe even get that first win of the season.
And Rory, you've been bigging up Thomas Frank as well and Brentford just in general. So you're going against Dan's line of thinking here, right?
I rate Brentford, but I do think that they're in a very tricky position. I've gone for a draw here. I just think Norwich is so poor. I think if Norwich were playing basically anyone else, I would say that they would lose. But I just think Brentford are in a tricky position, and I expect Norwich to make life very difficult for them. I think this one ends a draw, gone 1-1.
And Ben, for you, do you think that Norwich can get a result here?
I do. I agree with Rory on this one. I've actually made a 1-1 call myself. Underlying data for Brentford has been great. They can maybe consider themselves a little bit unfortunate not to have more points on the board. Ivan Toney as well. Again, maybe should have had a few more goal involvements. This is a massive game for me. This will determine whether Brentford continue that good start, or maybe we need to start questioning them and maybe worry a little bit. Do they have the credentials maybe to stay in and around that mid-table, or is it going to be more of a relegation scrap this season?
Now, for me, I just feel like the home advantage should be too much. So I am going to say that Brentford will win this one, but it should be a pretty close game. But now we're going to move on to the next feature game. It's actually over on Sunday, and it's Everton against Spurs. So, of course, Tottenham, as we've talked about at the start of the show, Conte will be in charge for his first game. But Rory, I want to bring you in. Was it the right decision, do you think, to get rid of Nuno at this stage after only 10 games in charge?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was definitely the right decision. I think regardless of what you think of Daniel Levy, or regardless of how Daniel Levy's conducted himself over the years at Tottenham, he's got this one spot on. We've got to acknowledge that he's done really well here. He's been decisive. He's realised and deduced very early that it was a terrible appointment. And the easiest thing for him to have done in that circumstance is to say, we're going to be patient. You've got to give him time. He was manager of the month a little while ago, but he didn't do that. And I think he deserves credit. And he's gone out and he has secured arguably the best manager in the world. It is perfect play from Levy. It is exactly what Tottenham need. And it's gutting.
But I mean, how do you think that Conte will get the best out of this squad? I mean, is he capable of lifting them much more than what Nuno was capable of?
Yes, absolutely. He is truly brilliant. Antonio Conte is truly brilliant. I think that's why it hurts me so much. If you look at what he did with Chelsea, he landed at Chelsea. Chelsea were 10th. He took us to the title. In the year where it was terrible, like Chelsea fans have been very spoiled with the conversation regarding Conte, and I think it's just a sign of who we are these days. Like, success has corrupted a lot of Chelsea fans. They say how disastrous the second season was. We finished 5th in the league and won the FA Cup. We beat Manchester United in the cup final, beating Jose Mourinho in the cup final. He is a phenomenal manager, and I think something, you go Chelsea 10th to top. When he took over at Juve, 7th to top. When he took over at Inter, 4th to top. It took him one season at Inter. It wasn't quite as immediate as the other two. But I think the jewel in the crown for him, actually, and this is very relatable to Tottenham, was actually what he did with that Italy team. Because his Italy team were magnificent. They captured the imagination of the world, in fact. And it was a really poor Italy team. I think it was an Italy team that had been knocked out in the group stages of 2 previous tournaments. He then arrived. They were so average, like far more average than this Tottenham team, so average. And he had them playing brilliantly. The system was key. And they ultimately got knocked out on penalties in the quarterfinals by the team that ultimately won the tournament. So what he has done, the way that he can level up, the way that he can coax performances out of fairly average players. Victor Moses, on loan at Stoke, on loan at Liverpool, on loan at West Ham, not getting a game at Chelsea, suddenly becomes the best right back in the league under a Conte system. It's so upsetting. And like, I think love and hate are often born out of the same sort of emotion. I think this one hurts so much, and I'm so upset because he is so good.
I know it is going to hurt a little bit to talk more about Tottenham, but for you, Rory, I mean, which players do you think will suit that Conte system the best, and which players do you see will kind of level up now that Conte's on board?
I think, look, the obvious players, the brilliant players that they have in their team, I think it's probably 3. You go Ndombele, Kane, Son. I imagine that their performances will just naturally elevate. They will just play to their full potential very soon. I think we will see the workings of Conte almost immediately. And that is why I anticipate them to win. But there'll be a surprise. I don't know who it will be, but someone who you've written off, or Tottenham fans have perhaps previously written off, will rediscover some form that you wouldn't believe. It might be Dele Alli. It's unlikely, but it might be Harry Winks. But somebody is going to be key in this Tottenham team, and you will see performances that you didn't think possible. Nobody in their right mind thought that the 2 best fullbacks in the league could be Marcos Alonso and Victor Moses. And yet, that's exactly what happened.
All right, well, let's pull up the odds for that first game. Everton away, not exactly the most easy fixture. The bookies do have Spurs as the slight favourites, but it's not massive. So just, Ben, let's get your view on this one. Which way do you see it going? I mean, Everton have been struggling lately, and they have some tough games coming up as well. So could it be that Rafa's, position is potentially going to go, under threat potentially if they don't do well in these next 5?
Well, I would hope, I want, and I need Everton to win, because I do think Rafa is in a precarious position with regards to his job at Goodison Park. And if he gets a sack, then maybe we see him back on Tyneside, something which I don't want. So I'm hoping and fingers crossed that Everton do win. I expect Tottenham to win. And going back to Rory's point of a player potentially emerging, I have Matt Doherty earmarked for a resurgence in this Tottenham team, or not even a return, an opportunity to prove himself. He's had very little chances, and I think he could flourish under Antonio Conte. But yeah, so it's Tottenham for me this weekend, without question. Everton have been really poor. I think the absence of Abdoulaye Doucouré is huge. And let's not forget, in terms of their attacking assets, Richarlison is still working his way back to full fitness. And also we could have Dominic Calvert-Lewin, on the sidelines. The game against Wolves on Monday night, Everton were poor once again. It's so bad, in fact, that, Rafa ended up throwing Fabian Delph back on the pitch, and he's had very little training in his legs. He knew he wasn't fully fit, but he just had to change something and try something after a terrible opening 45 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to actually bring up the injury crisis, almost what it is at Everton. I think you've covered the key factors there, the key players that will be out for Everton. But Dan, let's bring you in now for the best bets from your perspective as a betting expert. Let's take a look at your bet and talk us through why you're going for that.
Yeah, I've been watching the markets for this match quite closely, and there's been a lot of movement this week, so I want to try and take advantage of it. On Sunday, Spurs were at 2.80 in the 1x2 market, and obviously Conte's come in since then, and their odds have dropped as low as 2.4 to win with most bookies, best price of 2.5. That shows that a lot of people are expecting the new manager's bounce and for them to get a result. Personally, I'm not as convinced that things are going to change that quickly. It's still the same team that is going to struggle to create chances. They're 17th in terms of expected goals this season. So I'm back in the hosts. As Tottenham's odds have shortened, Everton's have drifted. So they've gone from around 2.6 to win on Sunday to 3.0 with most bookies. But I'm being a little bit more conservative. I'm backing them with a +0 in the Asian handicap market. That's a 2.14.
So, of course, that means if you do place that bet and it's a draw, you'll get your money back. But, Rory, do you expect that new manager spark or the bounce that we talk about when it comes to a new manager coming in for Spurs?
No doubt. Absolutely no doubt. I was at Antonio Conte's first game at Stamford Bridge. We played West Ham on a Monday night. We scored in the last minute to win the game. Diego Costa scored. Antonio Conte launched himself headfirst into the family enclosure, celebrating with the fans, swinging off the dugout. It was love at first sight. There was no way Chelsea weren't going to win that game, even in the 89th minute at 1-1. And annoyingly, this is exactly what's going to happen to Tottenham. Fully believe that Tottenham beat Everton at Goodison.
And how about for you, Ben? Are those injury worries just too much to make this one a decent bet?
Yeah, I'm going Tottenham all the way. I think it'll be a little bit tighter than maybe that some envisage. I'm saying 2-1 Tottenham.
And sorry, Dan, I'm going for a Tottenham win as well. I think that Conte will just rejuvenate that squad. But you are the betting expert, so we'll come back next week and review that prediction. So let's move on to some more quick-fire games. We're going to move on to Brighton Newcastle next. So once again, let's pull up the odds for Brighton against Newcastle, the evening kickoff on Saturday. Now, Brighton, it seems like maybe their form has dipped of late. Obviously, they made an impressive start to the season, but yeah, they have dropped off a little bit. Newcastle, Ben, you can tell us all about them, but Brighton are the favourites for this match. So, Dan, let's take it to your tip for the game and explain why that is.
Yeah, I'm liking the underdogs this week. I think there's value with the visitors here. Newcastle have drawn 2 of their last 3 away games. They've scored in each of the last 4 on the road. They are improving, but probably not quickly enough. Brighton haven't won any of the last 5, so I think their 1x2 odds of 1.78 are a bit generous. So I'm back in Newcastle with plus half a goal in the Asian handicap. That's at 2.4.
So, of course, that means if you do back it, then Newcastle or the draw means that you have a winning bet. Rory, do you see Newcastle getting a result here?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. It's so weird what's happened at Newcastle. I mean, I saw something truly astonishing recently. That just the euphoria that landed around Newcastle when this announcement was made. You just thought that this is it. Newcastle reborn. All of the stuff that we associated with Newcastle fairly recently is over. And then I read a story, something about Joe Kinnear trying to sign a midfielder called Shane Ferguson recently. He was on a scouting trip to Birmingham, only to be told that the 22-year-old midfielder was already a Newcastle player or something ridiculous, something truly ridiculous like that. And you just think it isn't. I think I came close to redefining Newcastle in my head. I was like, oh no, they're different now. This is it. But they're not. They're still Newcastle, and they need to be very worried about relegation rather than signing Mbappe. So I think that this one ends
maybe
in a
things
draw.
change in January, right? That's going to be the first kind of chance that we see the new Newcastle, I guess. Depends.
But do you know what I find troubling, Joe? Do you know where I find it just slightly troubling? You go, okay, they wanted Unai Emery, and you're like, okay, that makes sense. And then that didn't work out, and they go, okay, we want Eddie Howe. You're like, hold up, that's not the same. What's the strategy there then? Aside from being like fairly recognisable names in football management, there's no continuity there. To me, it doesn't look like. I thought that the new regime was going to come in and there would be like this story arc where they knew exactly where they wanted to go, and it would be a 10-year plan, and everything would be precise along the way. It doesn't feel like it's that at all to me. It feels like it's now Unai Emery available. No, all right, is Eddie Howe? I mean, I could be on that director's board. I could say that.
And Ben, for you as a Newcastle fan, I mean, do you follow that line of thinking, or have you heard a little bit more to maybe be a bit more positive?
I mean, the Eddie Howe recommendations are coming internally. Apparently, a few of the players have got together. You would think the likes of Ryan Fraser, maybe Callum Wilson, they've been championing his cause and putting his name forward. Up here on Tyneside, we always knew that the big thing for us was just getting rid of Mike Ashley, first and foremost. There wasn't really going to be a great deal of change during this initial period. We have Graham Jones at the helm, but really, he still had a heavy influence on that Newcastle team under Steve Bruce. Of course, he was his right-hand man. He was taking a lot of the sessions. They were talking tactics. And yes, look, personnel-wise, there ain't going to be a great deal of change. And we've shown and they've demonstrated that they're just maybe not good enough. And that's a true reflection of where they sit in the league. So I think for us at this moment, look, yeah, it's good. We've got rid of him, but it's still a tough fight. I think we may bring in 2, 3, 4 players in January, steady the ship, just survive, and then we build from next summer.
All right, so Rory, let's just have your quick prediction for this one. You were going for a Brighton win, right?
I've gone for a draw.
Okay.
I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, primarily because as much as I don't rate Newcastle, I think that Brighton's a little bit smoke and mirrors as well. So I just think that they cancel each other out.
And how about for you, Ben? Which way do you see this one going?
Yeah, exactly the same. I'm going 1-1.
Great stuff. I'm going to go along the same lines as the rest of the group. I feel like, the value bet is coming from Dan there. Newcastle should be able to make a good account of themselves. And again, that momentum that Brighton showed in the early part of the season, I feel, is going to drop away. Now we're going to move on to the next game with Leeds against Leicester. So here the bookies are fancying a Leicester win. Very slight edge there for Leicester. Leeds have been hit and miss, or mainly missed, to be honest, all season. And this one could be a bit of a goal fest as well, looking at 1.72 on the over 2.5 goals market. But Dan, let's bring you in here for our top tip for Leeds against Leicester.
This one's really kind of led by the odds more so than my own prediction, but I'm backing no on both teams to score. I think that provides a lot of value. That's a 2.55 with Bet Victor. I think that's amongst the longest odds I've seen in this market this season. Implied probability is 39.2%. I think it's a lot likelier than that, considering Leeds have only averaged 1 goal a game this season. So yeah, that's my best bet.
Of course, with this bet as well, you're basically backing either team to keep a clean sheet. So Rory, do you think either team will show enough kind of defensive solidity, or if it's a case of misfiring attacks to make this one a good bet?
I think I can see Leicester keeping a clean sheet. I think Leicester win the game 2-0. I think that Leeds are in trouble. Their injury problems seem to be like really affecting them. And I know they got a win the other day against Norwich, but I'm putting nothing in that. I think Leeds are in real trouble, and I can't see Leicester struggling at all. I think Leicester will make light work of Leeds.
And how about for you, Ben? Which way do you see this going? Do you think there'll be goals either side, or one team will keep that clean sheet?
I'm looking for a very entertaining draw, and I'm saying 2-2.
And I like this bet as well from Dan. I feel like it's a bit of a tough one when you are placing this bet because you're basically hoping that neither team scores. Every attack you're saying, no, don't score. But yeah, for me, I'm going to say there is some decent value in that one. And now we're going to go on the flip side for this market, looking at the next game, Arsenal against Watford. So here the bookies, of course, are favouring Arsenal with the home advantage and being in decent form as well. Aaron Ramsdale being pretty impressive in between the sticks of late. But Dan, you're going for both teams to score yes in this one. You think that Watford will get on the score sheet, and of course Arsenal will as well. Talk us through it.
Yeah, I thought about going for Arsenal in the 1x2 as scoring a lot more goals at home now, but the odds weren't great and they just aren't keeping too many clean sheets. They had one last week, but that was probably more down to Aaron Ramsdale's heroics, as you said, than anything else. The matches finished 2-2 and 3-2 the last time these sides met a few seasons ago. So yeah, I think both teams to score looks pretty good at 1.8.
And Rory, we touched on Ramsdale there. He has been called up to the England side. What do you make of him, as well as just Arsenal defensively in general?
Yeah, I think he's been very good, Ramsdale. I think it's very early. I think people seem to be he's gone from being one of the most underrated goalkeepers to one of the most overrated goalkeepers in about 3 weeks. I like him. I thought he had a very good game, but the conversation around that save was ridiculous. He should have saved it. When you see it freeze frame, you see how central it was. Of course, he saved it. It would have been a terrible error had that goal gone in. So I don't quite understand what that was all about. But look, I like Ramsdale. I like the way he plays the game. I like the role that he's sort of adopted as cheerleader as well. I think Arsenal needed a bit of that, a little bit of volume on the pitch, personality on the pitch. So Ramsdale's been great. And I think, look, they haven't lost Arsenal since they lost to Man City in the league, have they? Which was about 2 months ago now. So they've been lucky along the way. You know, the draw with Palace felt very lucky. The performance of Brighton was dreadful, but there is a level of improvement that we have to acknowledge to come to fruition what they're doing on the training ground. I think they'll continue. I think they're fine against Watford. I've gone for Arsenal to win it 3-0.
So yeah, we're going against Dan's advice there. Ben, do you think that Arsenal will keep a clean sheet, or do you think that Watford have enough to score and also concede as well?
The problem is Claudio Ranieri came in to improve that Watford attack. And despite the 5 goals against Everton, their overall metrics, they're not great. And I think they'll struggle against Arsenal. I don't like tipping up Arsenal fairly regularly because it always blows up in your face. But on this occasion, I'm going with 2-0.
Yeah, same for me. I'm going for a comfortable 3-0 win. So sorry, Dan, we're going against you yet again. But again, we might see that this is a good value pick for the game. Now we're going to move on to our final match of the week that we're going to talk about in depth, West Ham against Liverpool. So of course the big game on Sunday, West Ham against Liverpool. The bookies have Liverpool as the clear favourites to win this one, odds of 1.75. But they have had some injury issues. Ben, just take us through what are the kind of main concerns for the Reds at this point.
Yeah, so we had a late injury for Roberto Firmino against Atletico on Wednesday night. That looks to be a hamstring-related problem. Of course, he has only recently returned from a similar issue that kept him on the sidelines for around a month. So that would indicate that it's highly unlikely that he'll feature this weekend. In midfield, they've been boosted by the return of Fabinho. That's obviously a big boost, and also Thiago Alcantara, although there are question marks with regards to his match fitness and sharpness. But of course, Liverpool are missing the likes of James Milner, Harvey Elliott, and also Naby Keita, who's set for another spell on the sidelines.
I want to get Rory's opinion on one standout player for West Ham of late, Declan Rice. What have you made of him? How important is he in this West Ham team, and what can he do against Liverpool?
He's amazing, isn't he? He's truly world class. He's a remarkable player, so young as well. It makes you wonder how good he can be, and it makes you wonder what Manchester United would be if they made the right move and tried to sign him in the summer. It was such an obvious area of the pitch that they need improving, and Declan Rice was so obviously the perfect suitor for that. So a huge oversight from Manchester United, but it's to the benefit of West Ham. I'm so impressed with West Ham. I think that David Moyes has done so well, like blown my mind at how well he's done. I remember when he went back there and he was reappointed, it was probably the least inspired managerial appointment I can remember. I remember the fans being so flat about it. They were so down on Moyes. And I mean, his performances, you could almost say that he is the best, like pound for pound, he's the best manager in the league. What he has achieved with this team, best manager in the league, pound for pound. It's amazing. You know, they're doing it in Europe. They're making light worker teams in Europe. They're going away to Croatia. They're winning. Rapid Vienna are coming to London. They're losing. They're just managing to do it consistently. And every time you think that there's a tricky match for West Ham, every time you think, this could be the fixture where it goes wrong for them, they pull it out the bag. They are truly excellent. And if some of the signings had worked, like look, you see Sebastian Haller scoring loads of goals in Europe. If that had worked out, that signing, who knows where they would be? Who knows how good they could be? So I really hope that the board back Moyes, because they're going to need some reinforcements in January. But look at what they've done. You know, recently, knocked Man City out of their trophy, beaten Tottenham, beaten Aston Villa, beaten Everton at Goodison. These are statement victories from West Ham, and this is a real tricky game for Liverpool. I think this is the game of the weekend. Really, I'm really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Now, one key stat I feel like I want to just bring up as well. West Ham have used the fewest players in the league so far. They've made the fewest changes to their starting 11. They're still getting results. So, Ben, I want to talk to you about maybe the implications of that. I mean, how long can their form last if they're not making a lot of changes?
Look, if West Ham keep on performing at the levels they are and they keep getting results, that breeds confidence. Players want to be a part of that. That momentum will keep them going. And look, there should be no issues. David Moyes is managing his squad really well. There's heavy rotation in and around that Europa League, so players are getting enough rest between fixtures. The big one, of course, is keeping Mikel Antonio fully fit. I think he's pivotal to how the Hammers play. And yes, there's been some great support acts in that team, but I think without Antonio, West Ham just lack a little bit of punch and a little bit of directness. I think the physicality and what he brings to the team is, there's nobody else can do that role. So maybe that's an area that David Moyes may look to strengthen in January. At right back, we've seen Vladimir Soufal out in recent weeks, but Ben Johnson's come in and he's been absolutely superb. And so there's a lot to like about West Ham, and if they keep on performing the way the players will want to be a part of that, and the players will want to be starting week in and week out.
I mean, looking at the kind of the injury concerns from a Liverpool point of view as well, how do you see West Ham attacking this game? I mean, should they be going kind of at Liverpool? Do you think they can be got at? Or do you think they should be sitting back, trying to absorb some pressure and then try and counter?
I mean, it's going to be difficult if you want to go toe-to-toe with Liverpool, arguably the best player in the world, certainly on current form at the minute with Mo Salah, and Sadio Mane and Diogo Jota. They're not two bad players. In Fabinho and Jordan Henderson, who I think is massively underrated and gets a lot of undeserved flack for his performance, but does a great job in there. And then, of course, you factor in the likes of your Trent and your Andy Robertson, who are always, as wing backs offensively, they're a threat. But look, we know that Liverpool are susceptible to goals. We know that the space is in behind Trent, and that'll be something that David Moyes will focus on. He's meticulous in his preparation and how he sets his team up. And then Ben Rama and Bowen and Fornals and Antonio, they pose a lot of attacking threat as well. So I fancy a really entertaining draw in this game.
Well, let's just bring up the last 8 matches for Liverpool. It's a bit of a strange kind of course of events after that 3-3 draw with Brentford. I mean, look at the amount of goals they've scored away from home. Actually got a key stat for you here as well. Liverpool have scored 19 goals in the 5 away matches in the Premier League. So, Dan, I think it's time to bring you in here for our best bet of the match between West Ham and Liverpool.
Yeah, Liverpool are obviously scoring a lot of goals away from home. They're actually the first side in the English top flight history to score 3+ goals in 6 consecutive away matches. I thought about backing them with a handicap, but I just went with the 1x2. The odds are still pretty good. They haven't lost any of the last 10 Premier League matches against West Ham. They've won 4 of the last 5 away games against them. They're scoring a lot of goals, but I don't think it's going to last forever, so that's why I just went for the 1x2. That's at 1.75 with William Hill.
And Rory, do you see that as being a pretty decent bet as well, Liverpool to win away?
I've actually, look, I think it's a good bet. I think it's a sensible bet, but I find it very difficult to look beyond this West Ham team. And I think that this could be a bit of an upset. We've seen in recent weeks, Brighton, Brentford, Liverpool have been slightly vulnerable. I think Liverpool are playing really well. You know, you look at how well they've done in their group in Europe, for example, and I think you could almost make a case for their performances and their intensity being as good as it's ever been under Klopp. But for some reason, there is a slightly weaker underbelly. Maybe it's the lack of midfield stability. Maybe they miss Wijnaldum. The injury problems that they have in midfield is not doing them any favours. And when I think about West Ham, when I think about the intensity of that stadium, I just can see this one being an upset. I've gone for a West Ham win, West Ham 2-1.
Great stuff. And Ben, for you, do you see there being value in Liverpool or West Ham?
I think it's a little bit tight on Liverpool, given, you know, of course, at the time of recording, West Ham still have a Thursday night Europa League game to come. So we don't know, one, how David Moyes is going to set up his team, and secondly, if all of those players come through unscathed. But if they do, look, I'm expecting a close game, and I've went 2-2 to the Hammers.
Now, I'm siding with Dan in this one. I do think Liverpool will just be too strong, and I feel like they will get the result. But that wraps it up for this week's edition of The Big Stage. Guys, absolute pleasure to have you on board once again. Rory, Jennings, Ben Dinnery, and Dan Jenkins, thank you. We'll speak to you again next week.
Cheers, lads.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, if you do place a bet on any of our picks in this one, we ask you to please gamble responsibly. Thanks for tuning in to The Big Stage, and we'll see you again next week.